Hi, my name's Amy Varle. I am a social entrepreneur from Greater Manchester in the UK. I'm working in the field of affordable and sustainable housing solutions and homelessness prevention and response. And I wanted to talk today about a strategy which I'm promoting currently for the reduction of homelessness in the UK, and that is the implementation of a concept I've created called social property investment. And I thought I would share with you today a little bit more about what social property investment is and how it could potentially work for you if you are in some way involved in working in housing or homelessness, or even supporting vulnerable people with social needs. So social property investment is a collaborative strategy, and it's basically saying that let's combine the strengths, talents and resources of the public, private and third sectors, and let's put them in a pot together, create some magic. Let's use the best of the best, and we'll take that and create a bespoke model and housing solution for a vulnerable person or a group of vulnerable people. So how this looks in practice is we may have a landlord or a property investor who has accommodation and is willing to let that to a vulnerable tenant group. We may have a housing association which is in need of supporting people into accommodation quickly, and they don't have the required level of stock which they perhaps need to meet demand. It may be a charitable organisation that is working on the streets to support the homeless and rough sleepers. So it could be numerous organisations which are involved in this consortium building, and I would say every social property investment model is different. Everyone is bespoke and meets the needs of each of the parties which are contained within it. So what I'm going to do is show you a case study of a social property investment project that I was working on and I was involved in over the last couple of years. And this was a result of a project that I'd done a few years previously, where we'd taken a portfolio of property in the buy-to-let sector, and we'd worked with Manchester City Council to obtain participants who would like to go into housing as a priority. So we were sent individuals to come and access property who were homeless, who were rough sleeping, who were living in temporary accommodation, who were in bed and breakfast type establishments, refuges, supported some children leaving care, some elderly people as well that came to live within our projects. And what we did was, obtaining some property within the private rented sector, I implemented some strategies and systems and procedures which I'd adapted from my previous career as a local government officer, and that enabled me to protect the risk of the landlord and the investor, and they then would in turn let the property to somebody who would traditionally have been excluded from taking on that property. So during that pilot scheme period, we were able to work with lots of different strategies and tweak them and test them and scrap some of them and make new ones for some of them, and went through lots of nightmares and lots of successes, and it was really a roller coaster couple of years while we kind of came up with this model. Excuse me, but the crux of the model was that we wanted to create an inclusive housing model which was cooperative, and the core elements of the model would be to maximise profit and cost effectiveness for all parties. So this is for the landlord, this is for the council and the local government, this is for the person that's living within the property, and for a charitable organisation that might be regularly supporting a person. We want to make sure that we are providing a solution which is the most cost effective, or the solution which makes the most profit, which can then be reinvested back in to support other aspects of the service which is going to be provided. So profit and cost effectiveness is a big area. The second big area is mitigating and minimising the risk. So we want to, if we're taking traditionally, if a landlord is taking a homeless person from the streets, from a cardboard box, which is how we did things in the pilot scheme, we literally took people from a cardboard box and put them into a privately rented accommodation and supported them through that process. So if we've got a landlord who is going to be offering to do this, obviously we've got to protect their risk in some way. Otherwise, it's not going to be worth the aggro and the trouble, or the perceived aggro and trouble of dealing with systems such as local housing allowance claims, rental payments, paperwork and documents, and evidence and ID that might not be in the possession of the person that needs the housing. So we're looking at mitigating and minimising the risk. And I've mentioned strategies and procedures already. One area we look at minimising the risk is implementing strategies which were designed during our pilot scheme period. We look at mitigating the risk by spreading this risk across parties. So we're asking each member of this consortium to take a responsibility for an aspect of this strategy. So it might be that a charitable organisation is working with a service user, and part of the agreement that they make is that they're going to provide 1 hour of support every week to this person to make sure that they're meeting the needs of their tenancy. And that might be enough to enable the landlord to mitigate his risk and think that he's not just taking a chance on the homeless individual who doesn't have any references or doesn't have a deposit. He's taking a chance on a professional person that's being employed or volunteering within a non-profit charitable organisation. So that's how we work to maximise profit and cost effectiveness. And the second area with mitigating and minimising the risk. Thirdly, most importantly for me, is making a difference to the lives of people housed. And I believe that if we get the first two right, this really does impact and make the difference. It happens naturally from putting in the right kind of support packages in place, the right kind of assistance that's needed when a vulnerable individual is rehabilitating from a challenging set of circumstances or from a difficult time. We need to make sure that they are doing that within a controlled and protected environment, and that they are going to be supported to meet the needs of everybody that's getting involved within the agreement. So I'm going to show you how this actually works in practice with a case study. And this was a model that we created off the back of the results of the pilot scheme. We'd had some great success stories with some of the people that we'd worked with, and we wanted to take this strategy further and put it into something tangible and give it a name. And we wanted to banner basically the findings, which were strategies, systems and support, when combined, will create sustainable solutions for people who are vulnerable or are dealing with challenging social issues. So strategies, systems, support, those are the three core ingredients to achieving success in the social property investment marketplace. So I'm going to show you a case study of what we did in terms of putting this into something so that you could see exactly how it works, and you can get a real feel for this strategy in process. And I worked with the investor that supported me very heavily during my pilot scheme period with property. He decided to do some renovation work on a property which had been derelict for around 10 years. And he created with his refurbishment team an HMO studio hybrid apartment complex within what was a house. And you can see some of the pictures of the refurbishment work that's gone on there, and you can see that what a high standard that's been the work has been completed to. Absolutely beautiful accommodation, and I think anybody that's watching this video now will be surprised to learn that rough sleepers are able to move straight into accommodation of this standard, and this accommodation is designed for rough sleepers. We actually had some of our tenants who were participants of the pilot scheme help us to design what they needed in an accommodation unit, and they were involved in some of the design process as the property was going through its refurbishment stage, which was great. So we wanted to make this project, which was for the homeless, by the homeless. And I think you'll see that the outcomes have been fantastic that we achieved. Excuse me. We created, under the social property investment strategies, we dipped in with organisations, as you can see from my slides, across the public, private and third sectors. And we aimed, as I've talked about earlier, to utilise the strengths, talents and resources of all of them. So we got our financial injection from our private investor because our public sector weren't able to put any funds into the project. However, what they could put in was some resources in terms of support and specialised support for our residents. And that's a really important note to make, is that when you are, if you're a landlord and you're taking on a project such as this, you're not a social worker, you're not trained, nor am I, to deal with the very complex web of social issues that you will potentially encounter with a marketplace which is homeless or experiencing homelessness related issues. So it really is kindest for you and kindest for your resident to get the specialists in to provide the support that's needed. And it's really great for you, if you're an investor or a landlord or a managing agent, to be able to work with other professionals. If your tenant, maybe you've got a tenant that suffers with mental health issues and they don't want to speak to you for 3 weeks. If you have a pressing issue as a landlord that you need to resolve, this can be a really, really difficult issue to work with. And so if you're working within a consortium of organisations, you generally can find people to take responsibility for certain aspects. You may be able to access a support worker for your tenant, and they will be able to maintain a relationship that perhaps you as a property agent or owner cannot do or are not qualified to do. So it can work very well. And as you can see, we've got tenants I'm demonstrating on the slides here who've done really, really well and have some great outcomes with. I want to talk next about the financial aspects of these strategies. So whilst these projects are revenue generating, they are also cost effective for the local government as well. So we can see on this particular case study that the investor put into a total investment of 130k. However, the potential rent that can be taken out of that property is 24,000 per annum. So that means we've got a potential yield on that property of 20%. So that's clearly a model which could be self-funding. If the private investor wasn't always the one to put the funds in, the profits from the rent could be reinvested for the supporting services. So that's just a little adaptation of the model that, as I say, every social property investment model is different. And if we're looking at this one, this is one that's been funded wholly by a private investor. However, if we had a charitable organisation that was able to invest funds there too, then they were going to take a proportion of the revenue back, and that can be reinvested back in to provide other aspects of the service. So it's an adaptable model. This is just the way that we've used it and the way that we are using it. But if you can take even aspects of the model and adapt it for yourself, then that's great. And please let me know and get in contact with me on social media if you find ways of working which are better than we found, and if you're doing anything new or different within this marketplace, obviously we'd love to know. So let's have a look at the financial saving, and there's a really clever tool that you can use, and it's called it's by Crisis, National Single Homelessness Charity Crisis, and they do a tool which is called the Cost Effectiveness Indicator tool, and that enables you to put your data into their calculator, and you can work out how much money you're saving the government annually and monthly, I think, quarterly and annually via your housing solution. So we can see that the case study, whilst we've just had a look at here, it works very well for the investor. It works very well for the ladies that live within the property, and it also works very well for the government because they're saving on this property in particular over £150,000 a year. So that's not saving to be dismissive about, and we think this is why now I'm trying to empower others to create their own housing projects. So if I can evidence to date the housing projects that I've created, or I've supported others to create, or I've been involved in the facilitation of the direct housing that I've done, can evidence government savings in excess of £2.5 million, and that's evidenced via crisis cost effectiveness indicator tools. So if we're able to combine and join forces, and if I'm able to teach and empower others to implement these strategies as a force, how much money could we potentially save the government overall, and how many housing solutions could we create, and ultimately how many people could we keep off the streets and keep from an early death, which is ultimately what I'm trying to do. So from moving on forward, there's going to be lots of advice and guidance and support on the website. I'm partnered now with study partners of the Winston Churchill Memorial Trust, who enabled me to go and explore housing solutions in America over the summer. So now I'm bringing back the American techniques and utilizing them and using them to enhance the social property investment model. So please keep up to date on www.socialpropertyinvestment.co.uk. You'll find user guides on there coming up, e-courses, strategies, tools, templates, everything you should need to enable you to work successfully within the social property investment marketplace. So please keep up to date with the site, and if you can visit my social media, make sure you connect me on there. My links are within the video. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you.